Alright, welcome to the third video in our series, and thank you so much for coming this far. So this project or this video is going to be more hands-on. You have seen the code, you've seen the microservice application, you've seen our analogy on the monolithic and microservices application. Now we'll start looking at writing our Kubernetes file. But we'll first look at our Dockerfile because that is already written for all the services or for all the microservices that we have for this application. So without saying too much, let's dive right into it. Okay, I talked about we have the authentication service, which is in charge of our authentication, the sign up, sign in, and sign out of this application. We already have the Dockerfile built, written, simple, base image, lightweight base image, and your simple npm start. One thing I know I'm going to do for this project, this was originally built or written on my local computer. What I'll also do to test it out or to help people that will be using the code to build locally in their computer and also in the cloud, I will also be testing this application in a different computer. So I will just clone the code and see how it works for me in that project. But I'm going to be typing out, the Dockerfile is already written. We will go through the Kubernetes manifest file. That's our deployment file and our service file. Once we have all this written down, I'm going to push this to our Docker Hub. Then I'll be using a Windows computer to clone the code and do the deployment also in a Windows computer. So that will be the next video after this one. All right, so the alt service, this is the Docker image, is also similar for our front end. This is the Docker image for the front end, and the expiration, that's the Dockerfile. For other service, we have our Docker image, also very simple. Payments, we have Docker image, also simple, and our ticket service we have in the Docker image. That being said, I will have a separate folder. So everything, all the services and all the infrastructure manifest is going to all be in one code. So it's a mono repo. It means all the services are all in one repo. I could have split all the services to have their individual repos. If those services are being handled by different teams, they can have their individual repo. Then we'll have our communication or the APIs between the services. But because I'm the one doing the whole thing, I have everything in one repo. So bear with me. You might, if you're working in an environment, it might be different for your environment because the different teams might be handling the different services and they might have their own repo that is connecting to each other. I have a folder here called infra. It's empty. I'm going to start building our manifest file on here. Here I will create a folder and I'll call it K8S, that's Kubernetes. And in this folder, this is where I'll be writing all the manifest file for all the services. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. And remember that all the services all have a database connected to the services. So that is what my microservices does. It has its front end, it has its server, or the back end. It also has, or the back end has their individual database. First file or the first manifest file we'll be writing will be for our authentication deployment. So I will call this file auth-deploy the YAML. Okay, so we'll be writing this YAML. What we need is deployment. If you have an idea of what Kubernetes is, honestly, I'm just doing projects and trying to explain the things I did in the project because Kubernetes is a whole lot. If you already understand what Kubernetes is, yeah, you're welcome. So I'm using deployment. I'm not using pod as a kind. So I'm using deployment, and I'm also writing my services manifest file as well. Okay, without saying too much, I will Okay, one quick thing, if you have the plugin or the extension, let me show you this Kubernetes. If you have Kubernetes extension is installed, there are some things you can autocomplete with your files. So if I write kind here and do deploy, oh, that's not it. Okay, so if I write deployment here and see Kubernetes deployment, once I click on this, it will auto-populate. You know, from here I can start editing and start giving a different name and start making changes. If I also, because I'll be having my deployments and services in one file for each service, so I don't have so many manifest files to deal with. So to separate one from the other, you use 3 dashes and you come here, you write service and you put that, so it writes a simple, you know, boilerplate for you. You can start editing. So I will start editing here. I don't need to do so much. I'll start, you know, giving it all the names that I want for my authentication deployment or authentication manifest file. So the name of the image I'm giving it will be Cloud Core Hub, because that's the name that my image is going to take when I build this image. So I'm going to use Scaffold to build my images. I will also walk you through, you know, the process. Scaffold is, you know, more like a deployment or a delivery tool that is local. Once you're using Scaffold, you're able to make changes and it will automatically deploy this if you're deploying locally. You don't have to like push, you know, build image again and all that process. You know, Scaffold will take everything. Once there is a change, it will update and deploy and everything is live. I'll take out all this, but I need env. Okay, so I'll explain what is going on here. This is a deployment object we're using, and the name is going to be this auth deploy, and we have to give it a matching label so we can match this to our service. And we are going to give our container, the name is going to be auth, and the image is going to be Cloud Core Hub /auth. I'm going to put this auth before my images to make it uniform. You will see when we write the rest of our deployment file, it's going to have, you know, that prefix. It will have that prefix before our image name, so it will make it uniform or easier to change. If you can, you know, make and give it a different name before the auth, that'll be also good. But also remember to make that changes in all your deployment file. Then for env, we have, because all our services are connecting to a MongoDB, so we are going to be having a MongoDB, and this is going to be the URI for our MongoDB. You also see this when we write our MongoDB image. You will see the deployment file. You will see that we're going to define what the service is, and we're giving that same name on here. JWT, yes, I mentioned this in the first video that we are going to be having a JWT key and secret. This is something really simple that you can set up. You can give it a random value. I will show us when it gets to that point of using, you know, JWT secrets. You have to set this up, you know, locally, or even if you're using it in the cloud, you have to set it up and put it in your secret file and deploy. Or you can run your kubectl create secret command to, you know, create your secret for your JWT. I've also made mention of our Stripe, so also make sure that you have your Stripe set up. If you want to know how to do that, go to our first video in this series. You see how to set up your Stripe, and you get your publishable key and get your secret key and encode this if you want. But I'll still walk us through this process in this deployment. Okay, so the service for our auth deployment is going to be, you know, we'll give it a name, auth service, and selector will be auth, you know, auth, and the port for this service is 3000. That's really all for this one. I will create the second file here, and I will give it the auth mongo deploy YAML. Same thing we did for the first one. We are writing a deployment file, and we are also writing a service file as well. So for deployments, this is the name we are giving our MongoDB deployment, and the image is going to use is Mongo. So this is an official image from Docker that is going to use to build or set up our Mongo. And for our service, we are giving it auth Mongo SRV. And remember, this name is what we need for our deployment on here, auth Mongo. This is, so if you make any change here, make sure that it's the same that is on here. And with that, we are also, this is a default port for MongoDB. And with that being said, that is all the manifest file that we need for our auth service. We'll do similar for the rest of the deployment. If you find time, you can go through all the files. Is pretty much the same thing for all the services. You go through the deployment file and go through the service, same for the server and also same for the MongoDB or for the database. All right. So for our clients, which is the front end, we are only building, the deployment, and we are only doing one replica for most of our deployments, and the image is going to be, same prefix for all our deployments with the ticketing client as our front end. So this is the service, and the port is going to be, 3000. All right, that's it. The last here will be to write the secret door YAML. So for this, I'm going to be writing secret, and it's going to populate this, but we need to encode our secret and put it in this file. So the first, we'll give it a name, which is going to be JWT secret, and we are going to get that data on here. Okay, because I gave it a random number, we'll show you how you can do that. So the name of this key will be JWT key, and we are going to get that value using encoding echo -n and the password. So the password will be password anything you like, just put it for your JWT, that is fine. And you put pipe base 64. So it's going to encode, and this is the encoded password. You can copy this and put it here, but I already have something for my code, so I will copy it and paste. This is even exposed because you can also copy this and decode it to get the actual password. Okay, so this will separate it because we are adding the second secret. We'll copy this and paste it, but for this is going to be for our stripe, and the stripe here will be the stripe key. So the stripe key, what we are encoding here is going to be stripe secret password. So remember to go to the first video to see how you can get your secret password. This is not the publishable key. This is the one you will do reveal password, and you copy that password, encode it, and whatever results you get, you paste it in your code. So I have mine encoded, so I will copy this and paste it on here. Like I said, it's still exposed because yeah, you can see it, but not in its entirety, but you can see it. All right, that's all for our secret. Okay, we are done with our Kubernetes file. So the other part is going to be to look at our scaffold. Okay, next we are going to be writing our Ingress file for our dev environment. Since this is done locally, it's called a developing environment or a dev environment. Once we start going to the cloud or going to production, we'll have a different Ingress file for production deployment. So in here, I will create a folder and call this K8s dev. I will also create another one for K8s prod, but we're not writing it yet. It will be similar, but just a few changes that we need to make on there. So in the K8s dev, we'll be writing our Ingress service. So a new file, we'll call it ingress-srv.yaml. And here is just going to be, simple. Even if we don't have this on here and you do Ingress, Kubernetes Ingress is going to generate something for you. But we already have something written. I will explain this for you. It's the same thing, but there are things I need to add for, like regex. That's a regular expression. I set it as true because I am using all these values on here. So I wanted to allow regular expression. That's why I added this, set it to be true. And I added annotation for Nginx, and you have this and set it up for all the parts, the API users, the API tickets. So this is going to be your communication between all your services that needs to communicate, your tickets, your users, the orders, and all that. So it's pretty much the same thing, but all repeated for all the services that need the API communication. Okay, that's it for the Ingress for the dev. One thing I mentioned in the very first video for this series is to set up your host file to point your local host to this DNS. This DNS does not exist. I don't know who owns it, if it exists, but I put it in here. You can have whatever you want. You can do .dev, but make sure that you have the same name as it is here in your host file. So I will also show you how this is done in Mac and in Linux. I will show you my host file too. I'll go to my terminal here. Okay, so this is my terminal open, and it's going to be in etc file, or it's going to be in etc folder. So if you go to your cd to etc and you ls, you will see your host file. If I cut my host file, I will see what is in there. So I have my local host pointing to this DNS. Whatever DNS, if you like, you put google.com, it's your local host will point to google.com. It will act as if it's google.com, but it's not the original google.com. Whatever you set here will be your your alias for your host name. So you can use the same name, but make sure that whatever you have on here is the same that you have on here. That will be for local deployment. That is it for our Ingress. Now we are going to deploy the Nginx Ingress, or Kubernetes Nginx Ingress. I'll go here to Google and I'll type Kubernetes Ingress Nginx. Once you're on here, you can go to this GitHub page. Okay, let me move this to the side. Okay, on this GitHub page, you can go to their official documents, going to doing getting started. You can read through this if you're interested, but we are just going to the file itself. You go to deploy, and from deploy you go to static and provider, you go to cloud. Yeah, it's going to be pretty much the same thing for deploying in the maybe different cloud services, and also Docker desktop. You can use the same, and you copy this file. or you can go to this page. You'll scroll down a little bit, you will see the same file. You're going to use kubectl apply to apply this command. So I have this copied. I come to my command line, I'll paste this and run, and I have it running already, or I have the pod already, so nothing is changed. It's still the same thing. If there is maybe an upgrade, it will upgrade it. If it wasn't there before, it will put this. But not to worry, like I said, I'm going to do the same thing for a computer that I haven't done any of this, and it's going to be a Windows machine, so that you guys can also see how it's done. Okay, so we have this running, and we also make sure that our Docker desktop is up and running. And if you don't have Kubernetes enabled for your Docker desktop, you can enable that. We are testing this on Docker desktop. You can use Minikube. I'll also show you guys how to use, in this series, I will also do a demo on Minikube. But for now, we are using Docker desktop to deploy. So for Docker desktop, you get only one node, which serves as your master and your worker node. So everything is going to be in one node. That's fine for practice. Kubernetes is not enabled, you enable it, and you minimize this. Next will be to start our delivery or our deployments, and for deployments we are using Scaffold. Okay, a little intro about Scaffold. Okay, if you go on to Google and type scaffold.dev, okay, but before we get here, it says it has many essential features for container and Kubernetes deployment. So it includes, the image, tagging, resources, port forwarding, and everything that you can ask for. So it's used for your local developments, for your dev environment. You can do this locally, and it helps. Instead of making a change in your application and you go to build the image and you push the image and you all those processes, will cut off all those processes. Once there is a change in the code and you save, it automatically run the process of building your image, deploying and pushing everything. You're able to see this on your local host. Okay, so we have this. You can download it. Get started. Let's do the get started. So like I said, Scaffold is for continuous delivery. Once you have it up, it delivers your application. Once there is a change in the application or in the local image, wherever you make change, it continuously delivers your application. Okay, to download, you have to go to get Scaffold for CLI. You can now choose the operating system. I'm using Mac. Then there are different options. You can also use Homebrew. That's what I've used to install it. So just do your Homebrew and you have your Scaffold up and running. So brew install Scaffold. Let's see. Because it's already there, I'm not sure it's going to do much. Or maybe upgrade it. Okay, it's already installed. Okay, our Scaffold is good. If you're on Windows, okay, when I get to Windows, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to use Choco to install Scaffold. But that's done. Here we have to write the file, then run scaffold dev. I'm going to write the file in the home new file. I'll call it scaffold.yaml. Alright, is on here. So with this file, like I said, is going to help us with continuous delivery of our application. We are going to do here API version going to be okay. Let's even go to documentation and see what they have for the YAML file. Okay, so the YAML file here is, well documented and defined. If there are more things that you need, you can go to this, documentation to look through. The API version scaffold, is still in beta, but I'm still going to use version 2 alpha 3. Yep. Next will be kind. It's config, and we are deploying using kubectl command. Here we are going to define where our manifest file is. List where is defined is going to be in this root directory. You go to infra. That's the file that has our manifest file, and in infra we have K8s, and in that K8s we want you to deploy everything in it, and we'll list the second one, which is going to be the same infra K8s. Then we want it to deploy whatever is in the dev. That will be our Ingress. And you can list Ingress or you can leave it like this. Now you're going to tell it what you want it to do. So after the deploy, you want it to do a build. So build local, we'll push, I'll put this as false. Then we'll define where our artifacts are. So for the artifact, what do we want it to be doing? We want an image, and the image is going to be cloud core hub /auth. So this one is auto populated. So Docker, it will use the Docker file. I'm also going to define other things on here. Formatting is another thing with YAML. So sync manual is going to ask us for the source and the destination. So source or the destination will be, the root of the source. So source, let's even put source before destination. SRC. Put this before, and here our source will be SRC. Context is going to be the folder. In the root directory is going to go to auth, and in the auth is going to use the Docker file. And for the source code, it knows that in auth, which is the context, is going to go to the source, which is here, and it's going to build everything that is on here. Okay, it's going to include that in the Docker image, and the destination will be in the root when it's done. Okay, so that's all for the scaffold, but we've only done for one service. We are going to replicate the same for the rest of the services. I'll minimize this. Okay, so all set up. The context is, for this auth service, it has the destination and the source. The next will be the client, that's the front end, and it's going to do the same thing. That is the folder. Tickets, that is the context, that's the folder. The orders, the expiration, the payments, and the ticket as well. And the ticket. So it's going to do all this. That is all that we need to set up for Scaffold. We have Scaffold running, or we have Scaffold installed. So what next do we need to do? We are in the root folder of this code. Okay, we are ready to start up our Scaffold. We'll run scaffold dev. There is an error. Okay, I think it has something to do with our file structure that we defined here. We have kit as I'll move this folder to infra, and I'll move this one up to infra. Okay, so K8s will have only the deployment, then there is K8 dev, and yeah, this should be the structure. So let's run this again. Okay, so it's working now. So make sure you get the file structure. This one should have just your deployment files and your service files for your server and for your MongoDB or for your database. Then you have a separate folder for the Ingress file and the production file. Okay, everything seems to, be created, working. Get some warning here, but that's fine. So let's go. What is our DNS? Our DNS is this. Let's go check it out. Here on Google. Oh, it's working. Okay. All right. So I don't know why I'm excited, but if it's you should be excited. So once you're on here, I haven't done anything yet to sign. Let's try signing in. You see that whatever I put in here, it will be unrecognized, right? Whatever I like. Sign in. Oops, it is not. I can't sign in because I have to sign up. Okay, so let's do sign up. I'll do this, but just remember whatever you use for your sign up so you can use that again. Sorry, don't suggest for me. No. Come on. Okay, I hope you remember that. Okay, here we start, cell project. We'll give it a name. We'll say microservices deployment, and we'll give it a $30, price, and we'll submit. Now it's listed. We can add more projects and say CI/CD pipeline. And we'll give that how much? $25 and submit. We can list another one and say, okay, cloud services, and give it a name, $20, and we'll list, submit. Okay, so we have all this listed. Now, any other person that access this website this same time, maybe in the local host, but I'm sure one would try this in the cloud. You can share it with other people and see if they try it, they can see the projects that you've listed. With this, you can select any of these and view. Yes, I want to purchase this. I'll pay with my card. Now that's where it comes in. You see, it's showing here that we are using test mode. And remember, for Stripe, there is a default card you can use, to test this out if you're in test mode. But if you're not in test mode, you have to use your real card. It's 42, 42, 42, 42, 42, 42, 42, 42. Date, I think it can be anything, but I know is in 32. Then this you can use 564 and you pay. Successful. If you use any other card to make payments, is going to reject it because it's in test mode. It doesn't want to play with your card. It will accept it, but you might get some error with that. But that's all for our local deployment. We've set up our manifest in our Dockerfile, and we've tested our continuous delivery using Scaffold. So Scaffold is something you can use for your local deployments, and that's it for the third video in our series. So next I'm going to do this same process in a Windows machine, and I'm going to be changing host file, changing all the things. Make sure you don't miss any of the videos. This was originally done in a Mac OS, but next I'm going to test it out in a Windows machine, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you. Bye. And one final thing with the Scaffold dev, once you're done, you can run your Control C and it will, stop all the deployments. It will delete all the files that it has created, which is really cool. So it cleans up your environment, and that's it.